Hey, hi. What's up, everybody? It's the Hatening again. It's me, Robbie, again. I use my real name because I don't know if people listening know that is my name. Sometimes I get, I wonder if people think that my name is actually Hoop, or if I'm trying to be like anonymous. I'm not. I have a real name. But it's Hoop. Today I want to talk about boycotts and shit. And I'm not going to get too in the weeds with politics and my personal politics and stuff like that. I think they're pretty clear. If you want to know more about my politics, I have a whole politics podcast called Bolsheviks, that you can check out if you really want to hear me talk about cool communist stuff. But, that being said, I just wanted to bring up like boycotts real quick. For the past couple years, like the idea of like boycotting products has really, really seeped its way into pop culture and like social media, like internet culture specifically, especially if you exist in like progressive, left-leaning, whatever those terms mean to you, spaces online, right? Like every couple weeks there's sort of like a call for a new strike online, whether it is in protest of like something that comes out in the news, let's say a report comes out or a story comes out that someone high up at this company did something racist or sexist or was like fucked up. So then there's going to be a call to boycott, whatever it is that company does. We all remember during the election and like the months surrounding that general time, there was a lot of boycotts being called for companies that openly supported Trump, right? Or for donors of the Trump campaign. There were people who were trying to boycott those companies, right? More recently, we've had calls for boycotts in support of strikes for companies who, their workers, their employees are trying to unionize, or like I said, they're going on strike, or you hear about like abhorrent labor conditions, right? So there's always boycotts happening, right? Like I admittedly like don't really keep up as much as I probably should with like who we're supposed to be boycotting if you call yourself a leftist or progressive or whatever. And I'm using those terms kind of flippantly and like lightly because everyone's personal politics are completely different. My definition of a leftist is going to be different than yours or whatever, even though mine is the correct one. You know what I mean? So I just kind of like use catch-alls like that. But that being said, like I try and keep up with the stuff that I'm supposed to be boycotting. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is just because like one, like there always are things that are being called into like boycotts or whatever the term would be, right? There's always like some reason not to buy some shit, not to use some service, whatever the fuck it is. But also there is an amount of privilege that comes with the ability to boycott some of these larger corporations. And it's something that I thought about a lot. In the past year when there were a lot of these boycotts being called over labor practices of larger companies, right? And because of like reports that were filed and because of, like things that were happening, like for various like food companies specifically, there were calls for boycotts of that food company's products. And it was shocking for some people to learn just like how interconnected most American brands are when it comes to like food and clothing and stuff, right? If you look at like those like very intricate like spiderweb-esque maps of like the mother corporations and then all the like labels and brands and stuff that they own. Like it's dizzying, right? And with the last round of boycotts, it kind of became a thing where if you wanted to boycott some of these larger companies to apply financial pressure, you really had to go out of your way to do so. You know, like the average American consumer, if you consume a lot of just like domestic food products, right? Brands of cereals, snacks, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff, juice, milk, like all these like groceries, basically. Like if you want to execute like a boycott, you really have to be mindful, a boycott of like food stuff. You really have to be mindful of what you're shopping and sometimes where you're shopping, right? And the reason why this gets dicey and becomes like a socioeconomic issue and it gets a little classist is, you know, sometimes the shit that people were kind of like calling to be boycotted were like staples of a lot of people's diets because it's affordable, right? I don't want to get too in the weeds and like create hypothetical scenarios and like be, you know, super anecdotal, but if you got a lot of shit to buy at the store and not a lot of money to do it with, you're going to go for the cheaper stuff. And if the cheaper stuff has just now been eliminated because, you know, the person who owns that company gave money to Trump, or because like those workers are on strike, you know, for whatever reason why you feel that there should be a boycott, that makes it dicey morally and, you know, economically for consumers who don't have a lot of options. You know, that is also to say that the people who might be, you know, trying to do a boycott have other options at their store, right? I brought up food deserts and I've brought up just like, you know, food disparities before, but like that's like a real thing. Like it gets kind of like thrown around and like it becomes like hyperbolic to an extent, but like honestly, like if you can only afford to go to a discount grocery store and they only sell one or two brands of, let's say, pasta sauce or cereal or whatever, and you need to buy this to fucking feed yourself or your family or whoever the fuck you're buying food for, you don't really have the luxury to sometimes get other brands, you know, that might cost more money. You know what I mean? You can't sometimes go to a different store, so you have to go to these places, right? And it bothers me because like there's a lot of like, I don't know, like people get really high and mighty when it comes to like these mass calls for boycotting, and when they do so they kind of just like ignore you know, people who don't really have that option. So I kind of wanted to just like articulate that a little bit, you know, because it's frustrating. It's definitely frustrating when people like, you know, talk about how we need to boycott this and boycott that, and if everyone did it and did their part, and how like they're annoyed that people do whatever. And it's like, some people don't really have any other options, you know. And but that being said, like there are things that aren't part of like your everyday diet. So it's like, you know, for instance, like one thing I don't consume is Chick-fil-A, right? I don't fuck with Chick-fil-A at all. You know, I don't even eat their shit if it's free, because of their stances on, you know, all the gay shit, for lack of a better term. And I don't, you know what I mean? And like, that's one where like, if people fuck with Chick-fil-A, I'm definitely like, oh, really? You know, because that's not like, you know, a cheap staple food in your cabinet. That's something that you're going out of your way and spending a decent amount of money making a choice to do so. You know what I mean? But also like with the boycott thing, not to get too cynical, because like there is power in boycotting. There is power in numbers. If you can organize a boycott correctly and successfully, it can exert pressure on companies. And as consumers, the only power we really have is our dollar. Although we all know in America, depending on what the company is, like if they actually start to lose money, they just get bailed out by the government or get, you know, low to no interest loans, and then they just, you know, keep on going and stuff. But like the power of the boycott, I'm not convinced that it really matters in a lot of instances. I don't know if I'm going to get any shit for that. I welcome any discourse about it, but you know, The profit margins are so low on individual units for a lot of stuff that's sold, you know, from my understanding of like how the economics work in like the food sector. You know, I don't really think that like me personally, like switching my brand of tuna and thus not giving like some company like $4 a month is really going to convince them to like get rid of like a CEO that was caught saying racist stuff. Obviously there's like power in numbers, so if if 1,000 people do that in every city, you know what I mean, like the numbers can, like, you can extrapolate that to be more grand than just me. But like I also understand, like, that being said, like I understand people who are just like, what am I gonna do, you know, like if I stop eating fucking, you know, whatever the fuck, if I stop using Spotify, like they're not gonna give a shit. What my fucking like $5 a month isn't gonna, you know, crumble their empire. They're not even gonna notice, you know. I understand that like defeatism, because that's just like how big a lot of these corporations are. If we're talking about something small and local, yeah, dude, like if you boycotted like a local store that has like one location and you organize that correctly, like you could really like exert pressure and get a lot of stuff. Like there are instances of, you know, local businesses, especially here in Greater Baltimore, where the owners or whatever get caught doing fucked up shit. The community acts and then things change. Like that really does work. Like on a small scale, boycotts are very powerful. National scale, I'm not too convinced they do a lot. It really seems like the best way to exert pressure nationally is like Twitter campaigns and shit. Like as dumb as that sounds, that's just the way the world works. But that being said, that is the episode. Thank you for listening. Andrew and I really appreciate it. If you fuck with the show, please give us a good review. Give us stars. We need stars. We're very Mario-esque in that regard. You can find The Hatening on all social media platforms. From there, you can find the individual profiles for myself and super producer Andrew. You can find links to the other stuff that we do. We do a lot of other stuff, individually and as a team, as a unit. But yeah, take care of yourself and the people around you. Don't forget to tell your friends you love them.